Hello! So in this video I wanted to do a step-by-step of how I created a modular piece of terrain which can be used in the upcoming Necromunda expansion, the Ash Waste. I started off with a 30 by 30 plywood type of board. You can get these in craft stores or DIY shops, or just cut a piece of wood out yourself. I've then started to draw a bit of a river in the middle of this because I'm intending to create like a toxic sort of sludgy river. I then wanted to start adding some texture, so I've gone for some all-purpose filler like a grout, and I'm going to put that down. You can also add like a textured paste like the type that Vallejo sell if you want to. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm all for making it yourself or buying it or whatever. It does help if you have one of these like spatula sort of things where you can just sort of start to slather it kind of across the build. If you don't have that, a good piece of like robust cardboard can help as well. But yeah, this process can get kind of messy, so you probably want to put it down on some newspaper, maybe wear some gloves. At this stage I'm not like 100% sure how Games Workshop's going to portray these Ash kind of wastelands. I mean, there's already some sort of lore and things out there, but I've just kind of gone with my own headcanon, and I think that's what we should do really in fantasy and science fiction worlds. We should make our own interpretation. Anyhow, what I'm doing now is putting some sand down for extra texture. If you don't have sand, just anything, cat litter or coffee grounds or whatever. Here I just wanted to show you that you could create some height to this. If you wanted some like bits of hills or mountains, you could put some XPS foam or just some styrofoam down if you wanted to, or make it modular and have it separate. My grate has taken a good few hours to dry, so now I'm going to be using some paint. I tend to just use craft paint when it comes to terrain instead of using like your expensive miniature paint. I'm going to go for like a generic-y, kind of deserty coloured sort of backdrop. I'm starting off with like a deep kind of burnt sienna kind of tone, and then I'm gonna work in some lighter colours afterwards, and then some washes after that. I'm just adding some variation of sort of colours as well, because terrain has different colours in it. And then I'm just adding some green to where the river would be in anticipation of what's coming next. I've just added some sepia tone to the terrain itself, and now I'm going to be using 2-part epoxy resin. You can use UV resin or like water texture if you want to, but the 2-part epoxy resin tends to be the cheapest and most readily available. You want to like grab an old paintbrush or a stick and just start to drag and mix this stuff across, and then I'm going to add some neon green paint as well to make it look a bit more toxic and glowing, and then once that's dried up a bit more I'll be adding another top coat of just a clear layer. So whilst all that is sort of drying and curing, I started to make some homemade terrain as well. This is literally just an old tin can, and I've just stuck some bits to it. So I started off with a 10 by 10 sort of coaster plywood board to stick everything to, and then I've just added some old sort of textured bits and pieces and some grate there, and that's just an old tin can, and I've stuck some cardboard in it as well because I'm going to be adding some resin to it, but I don't want to fill the entire thing with resin. Those pipes are just from like a children's set you can just get anywhere really cheap. If you don't have these, you can just use some straws or just something like that to look like pipes. Or even some like old metal piping you have lying around, or plastic piping or whatever. Here I'm just starting to add some weathering, so I've added some paints here and there. I'm just sort of dry brushing some orange over the top. It's just where you load your brush up with a load of paint and then take some excess off and just drag it over the material or the terrain or whatever, and it'll create some cool texture. I do have a video, a tutorial about weathering specifically on this channel as well, if you want to check that out. Here I'm just adding some sepia tone dip. I really like this colour, but you can add whatever else you want to. It just adds an extra layer of grime and filth. Now I'm going back in with some epoxy resin, but this time I'm using some water effects. So I'm just pouring that in, and then as that's starting to set, I've decided to put some of that neon green stuff in. As you can tell, I'm kind of running out of it. I need to get some more. But yeah, I'm just kind of putting it around so it creates like a whirlpool kind of effect. You kind of want to do this when it's still wet, sort of semi-dried, and then just wait for that to dry now. So now you can see this is the terrain board, the main piece. It's all dried now and cured, and it looks really cool. You got like an ash waste kind of vibe to it, and I love that sort of toxic river. And this stuff's dried out as well now. This is going to be a really cool addition for like a modular piece. And while I was at it too, I created a few other bits and pieces. So this is literally another tin can, painted it up and stuck a load of little pieces on, which I've 3D printed. Even though I do have a printer, I still like to kind of go old school with my terrain as well, and sort of create a hybrid of things. And I've also got a really cool piece as well, which I've 3D printed. So I heard that Ash Waste is going to have vehicles. This is something I printed from Loot Studios Wasteland Month. Got a very sort of Mad Maxy vibe to it, and I went with like the house Escher, they called. Is that how it's pronounced anyway? That's kind of the colour scheme. I've sort of going through a very, very colourful but still grimy, and she just about fits in there, which is really cool. But yeah, I'm really sort of excited for this expansion, and I like the terrain which I've created, but it just goes to show you can create cool pieces of terrain out of like junk if you want to. So thank you for watching. I hope this inspired you in some way, and you can check out my other work on YouTube and also in the links in the description.